This is Dr. Craig Lemoine at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. And today we're going to play around with nitrogen. And we're going to use nitrogen's wealth management tool to utilize some pretty sophisticated analysis when it comes to understanding the correlation and the ability of a portfolio to work together, not work together, and do things that in the past we would have to do in Excel, and we just wouldn't have the graphing and other capability that we do here. So when we look at nitrogen and we look at the actual platform, I want to cover just a few things before we dive in. And so the very first thing is that I've gone ahead and created three proposal accounts. All right. So my proposal client name is Planning Illini, and it's a little something we call the program. But what I've got then is I've created and gone in and said, okay, I kind of want to model, a 40-year-old who's saving for retirement. And that 40-year-old is on their way, but they're thinking, okay, I've got some stocks and bonds in a retirement account maybe. I've got some home equity. Those are primarily my big assets. So what can we do to help that person along towards their long-term goals? So what I did was I just modeled sort of some dummy account proxies here, and we'll get into that more a bit later. But we've got the idea of the S&P 500 cash and bonds, and you can use nitrogen to key things in, just kind of add investments or models. And then I've done everything to the dollar. You can see the 77, 18, 5, everything is 100%, but you could put real dollars in of a client as well. It's just not what I'm trying to do today. So I've got some different portfolios in. Nitrogen is a really easy platform to play around in. There's lots of optionality we have. We can look at some risk-reward elements of this portfolio, and you can see each underlying security, risk-reward going on there, and I have some more sophisticated ones later. We've got tax drag. They'll tell you sort of the taxable elements, and then expense ratios. Of course, this is manipulated low because I've used index sort of items. And if there were dividends as well. That's one of the first thing you can do nitrogen. Just put securities in, click, and see what's going on. But I like to run a little more sophisticated, and so there's some stats we can open up. There's scenarios. We can map out, how long till someone can hit a goal or not. We can look at the history of the portfolio and some underlying settings as well. I like to spend quite a bit of time in the Stats tab, so you can click on that and go to Stats tab, and select which account you want to model. And so for this sort of intro, we'll keep it boring, and we can just look at some general dynamics. And in that Stats tab, we really have a lot of cool stuff going on. You've got a portfolio summary, and nitrogen scores it with what's called a Riskalyze GPA. As well, so they kind of give you a score of how you're doing. I've got a 4.0 right now, not bad for a boring old portfolio. You can see trailing returns, 5 years to 3 months. You can see different costs. This is more meaningful when you're not modeling it for academic use. They've got performance models that you can change the time frames on. But just looking at a 1-year performance, you can see how my 80-20 did to the market, which is in green, and a 60-40 blend in gray. No surprises there, nor should there be. Over 3 years, then you'd extend that. But again, no surprises as we're looking at, 60-40, 80-20, 100. It shouldn't shock anybody how that came out. You can scroll down a little bit more, and you've got a diversification graph. A diversification graph is pretty cool. In this case, not as cool because we just have two things. Talk about how stocks and bonds play together. And then at the bottom of the stats, you've got pretty neat report on asset classification. So what sectors am I invested in, within equities, within bonds, and then of course that 5% cash I threw in to simulate cash drag. You've got regional exposures, which is really fun, especially as we build out a more meaningful portfolio. And then you kind of have some size and style boxes reminiscent of Morningstar, and this risk reward graph, which, again, we shouldn't shock anybody when we start looking at things from a 60-40, 80-20, 100 perspective. But I'm a big fan of nitrogen. Nitrogen is a really strong program, and it really makes it easy to model the sophisticated and actually talk about the sophisticated here and there as an advisor might want to. So I just want to introduce everybody to nitrogen, and very excited to join me on this journey.